Welcome to training for SpecialT for therapists. We are so happy to have you in our training. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to contact us on sales@specialt.co.za or info@specialt.co.za. We would love to support you in the process of getting up and running on SpecialT. Okay, to get started, you as a therapist are going to sign into SpecialT on the App Store or the Google Play Store. All you need to do is go to the app and the Google Play Store and search for SpecialT for therapists. If you are a therapist, you will use these platforms. And if you are a therapy parent, you will use a platform called My SpecialT. If you are a patient using SpecialT, you use the platform called My SpecialT. Okay, so to get up and running as a therapist, you're going to go to the App Store, search for SpecialT for therapists, and you are going to download SpecialT for therapists. You will then arrive at this page. You can see that we are guiding you through the process. If you are a therapist, you're going to click I am a therapist. If you are a parent or a client that is joining SpecialT, you can click on I'm a therapy client. It also then notifies you to visit My SpecialT, and it encourages you to wait for your therapist to send you a link from their platform. Okay, if you have already signed into SpecialT, remember that you can click on the sign in button and enter your email address and password to get connected. Okay. So now you're going to click on I am a therapist. You're then going to enter your full name. You're going to enter your contact details and your email address that you want to use to sign in with SpecialT. Well done. You can now enter your position in your practice. Click on position and you can enter whether you're a therapist in a practice, whether you own a practice and do therapy, or if you own a practice but you're not a therapist. I'm going to click on own a practice and do therapy. You can then click on your profession. Are you a play therapist, a general occupational therapist that works in hands, psych, physical rehab, CVAs, hand therapy? You can enter general occupational therapy. Or do you work in pediatric occupational therapy, pediatric speech therapy, or are you a practice manager? Click on your specific profession. Then enter your HPCSA credentials. Enter a specific password that you want to use when signing into SpecialT. Now you can agree to the terms and conditions between yourself and SpecialT. These terms and conditions go through all the legalities of using SpecialT as a platform for yourself and your clients and patients. You can read through these terms and conditions and agree to them. We will also send you an email address, an email with your specific agreement to your email once you click on I agree. Now you have finished the process of registering yourself and creating a profile. Now it's time to add a practice to your profile. I'm going to then click on add my practice. If you are a therapist that is joining SpecialT because your practice owner has already joined SpecialT, you can then click on find my practice. This will then lead you to search for the practice that you are going to join. I'm going to click on add my practice because I have not created my practice yet. I'm going to enter my practice name, my BHF number, and my address. I can then enter contact details that I want to use for SpecialT to contact me. I can enter a website address if I have one. If I don't, I can continue. I can then add my company bio. This is where I'll put my special interest and all the information about my practice, which clients I treat, and what I believe in as a practice owner. I'll put in all my information about my practice and then click continue. I then need to connect my practice to my profession. If you are a therapist that works in maybe two different professions, for example, you do OT pediatrics and OT general, you can then connect your specific practice to your specific profession. You can see I only have one practice and one profession, so it ticks itself automatically. I can then put in my specific position in my practice. Am I the practice owner or am I not the practice owner? If a therapist that works for you has signed into SpecialT and had to create a practice for you because you haven't yet joined, she will then enter I'm not the practice owner, so that when you join SpecialT, you can then become the practice owner. You can then click on create practice. You will then need to agree to the operator agreements, and these are the specific agreements between the practice owner and SpecialT. These agreements go through all the laws and legalities about SpecialT hosting information for you and keeping data safe and secure on behalf of your clients. This agreement will also be emailed to you. Well done. You have now created a profession and a practice. You can click done. You will then go to your page where you can see more information about your practice, what profession you are connected to, your location, and the description about your practice. You can click on team, and this is where you can see yourself as one of the therapists in your practice, and you can add additional members to your practice. If the members have already joined SpecialT, they will then get an email to notify them that they can join your practice. If they haven't yet joined SpecialT and you enter their details under add a team member, you will then send them an invite to join SpecialT first, and then they can get connected to your practice. If you click on the pencil button, you can update your practice name, your BHF number, your address, and all the specific information for your company bio. You can click on the edit button, and this is where you can upload a picture for your practice. You can use your company logo here if you would like. Then you can also add associations by clicking on the plus button near associated practices. If you would like to associate to other practice, this is where you will do this. Now, the difference between adding a team member to your practice and associating to your practice is that if you're a therapist that owns a big practice and has lots of therapists working under you, you look at their notes, you manage their cases, you even manage their finances, we would suggest that you add them as a team member by clicking on team and then adding them to your practice. This way, you will manage their accounts and they will be under your practice. If you work in a practice where you all work independently, sometimes practices, whether they are in the same profession or different professions, work together in a team, but they run their own business, they run their own accounts, and they run their own practice and caseload. This is where we would suggest that you add an association to these other practices. Okay, well done. You're going to click on the back arrow and go to your home page. At the bottom, you can see it says patients, alerts, resources, and more. If you click on more, you'll be able to view your profile and your account, your practice and teams, any notifications, and you will be able to find different areas where you can get support from SpecialT. If you click on Profile and Account, you can see what subscription plan you're on, your practice name, and your specific profession. If you would like to add another profession, because maybe you work in OT Peds and OT General, all you need to do is click on the plus button, and you can then look at all the other professions, and you can add an additional profession to your profile. This way, it would allow you to click between the two profiles. You can see your patients. At the moment, I haven't added any, and you can see your account billing details. You can update this at any point. Now we're going to get started with adding patients to your practice. We have changed this, and our approach in changing this is very important for two reasons. The first reason is because of the POPI Act. As you all know, it is really essential that we comply with the POPI legalities in South Africa. So, why we have done this is that when you add a patient to your practice, you are sending the invite to the client. The client then creates their own profile and then creates the patient profile. By doing this, the client has to agree to the terms and conditions with SpecialT, and the client creates the profile for the patient, and all the personal information is entered by the client. Another reason why we have changed this and why we have added this to version 2 is that it makes sure that the client and the patient are engaged in the process from the beginning of the referral. We find that it is really important to add the client from the minute you get that phone call that the client would like some therapy. So as you get that call and the client says, "Can my child please come for therapy?" you send them the invite link straight away and say, "Please, can you create a profile for your child or your patient?" Okay, I'm going to click on the plus button, and you can see that I can send the invite link via a WhatsApp, SMS, or online, or I can send it via email. I'm going to click invite link. It then opens up my phone and allows me to now send the invite link to my patient's parents. Okay, so the invite link is now going to the client, or also known as the parent, so that they can create a patient for me to start treating on SpecialT. Okay, so I've sent that link invite. Now, in the case where the client maybe isn't present, or the client isn't responding to your request in creating a profile, you can create a profile yourself. We don't suggest this because, as we suggested, it is really important that the client engages from the beginning and they create the profile. They're agreeing to the terms and conditions, and it involves them in the process from the beginning, so that they don't wait a few weeks before they get engaged in the therapy journey. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to create an invite if the client has not engaged and has not sent that invite, has not clicked on that invite. Okay, so I am going to now start by creating an account. I'm going to enter my name as the client, and my email address. I'm now going to I'm now going to read through the terms and conditions. And these terms and conditions are between SpecialT and the client. When the client agrees to these terms and conditions, they are agreeing to the conditions between themselves, the client, and SpecialT. The client can then add a password that is specific to SpecialT. The client has now created a profile for themselves, And now they can add a profile for their own child or their patient. The client can add the date of birth. And the client can enter the relationship between the client and the patient. Remember that the client and the patient can also be the same person. So if you're a patient who is receiving hand therapy, you will also then be the client and the patient. So when you enter relationship to patient, you would just enter patient. You can then click continue. The client can then update any important medical information and medication information. The client doesn't need to enter the information now, but if they want to, they can. You can update it as a therapist at a later stage. The client will then agree to the terms and conditions between the client and the therapist. So this is not the terms and conditions between SpecialT. This is the terms and conditions between the therapist and the client, and this is per patient. So if the client has 2 children that go to therapy, then they agree to 2 of these terms and conditions because they are specific to the patient. Well done. That process is finished. So you can see how quick it is for the client to create a profile for themselves and their patient or their child. You can see that they are waiting for the therapist to accept the invite, and they will then see the assessment and session once the therapist has finished that information. I'm going to go back to SpecialT now for therapists, and you will see that when I go back to the patient page, I have now got 2 new requests. The one request was from Candace, the patient that I created as Candace, the client, and Samantha, the patient. And the other one is from for Carl Jones, who was created by Erin, who is the client. I'm going to accept both patients. If you are a therapist that is in 2 professions and 2 practices, when you click accept, you will have the option of connecting the patient to the correct profile. So remember that if you are maybe working in 2 different practices as an OT, and say that you are a younger therapist and you maybe work with one practice in the morning and another practice in the afternoon, remember that when you add the patient to the practice profile, to click on the correct practice profile for that specific patient. If by any chance a profile and request comes through twice, you can easily click on the patient name and then decline the invite. Okay, now that you have accepted the patient, you can now get started with adding patient information. I'm going to click on Carl Jones. You can see that I need to add the new assessment and get started with this patient. First, I'm going to click on the eye. This will then open up Carl Jones's information. I can see that his primary client's name is Erin and his primary therapist is myself. If I would like to add an additional client, I can click on the plus button, and this will allow me to add an additional client to this patient's profile. This might be another parent, a guardian, an au pair, a teacher, any other individual that might need to be added to this patient profile. What must be known is that when you add an additional client or parent and guardian to the patient profile, the invite will get sent to the primary client first. This ensures that we comply with POPI. So as I send this request, it will first go to Erin, the primary client, and then once Erin approves and accepts the additional client coming onto the profile, the invite will then get sent to the client, parent, or guardian. Okay, so this ensures that we are covering your back as a therapist and making sure that all of those important legalities are all interwound into SpecialT. Okay, the same happens with adding a therapist to the patient profile. If I click on the plus button, I can enter an additional therapist's email address. I can choose whether the therapist should see all the notes or only future notes. And when I click the request will first go to Erin, the client, to accept another therapist joining the patient profile before the other therapist will be able to join the profile. What must be known is that by adding a therapist to this patient profile at this point on the patient profile, this therapist will share the same notes as you. So if you are working with a locum, or you maybe work in a practice where there are two therapists treating one patient, this is where you will add the additional therapist to the patient profile. If maybe there's a therapist that works down the road in the special needs school and you work in a private practice in the afternoons, you won't add their profile over here. That therapist will send an invite to the parents and the client will then create a new profile for Carl Jones. Okay, so just make sure that if it is a therapist that is treating the patient with you and alongside you, and you are happy to share the file with that therapist, you will add them here on this profile. If it is a therapist that is maybe in another profession or works in another practice and you don't necessarily want to share your file with this therapist, they will send the invite from their own practice to the client, and the client will then create a new profile for their child. And then those two notes and files will be separate. They won't be together. Okay. If you click on the pencil button, you will then be able to update the patient's name. So if for some reason the parent maybe entered the wrong name, you can update the patient name, the date of birth, and you can add the day that the patient comes for therapy. If the patient comes for therapy twice a week, you can add both those days for therapy. Okay, now you can see that you can go to your next patient and you can update that patient's profile, and you can enter the days that they come to therapy as well. So now when I'm looking at my profile, I can see that tomorrow's patients, I'm seeing Samantha, and all my patients, I see Carl Jones. Obviously, as you add patients to this, your patient list will grow, and you'll easily see today's patients, tomorrow's patients, and all your other patients in your list in an alphabetical order. Okay, I'm now going to click on Carl Jones, and I'm going to get started with adding a new assessment to his profile. So what I'm going to do is, as I get that phone call and referral, I send the invite to the client. The client creates the patient profile, and then I can start by adding some notes. If I want to write some notes about the reason for referral, before I forget about why the patient was referred, I can then write these reasons over here. I can enter some notes. I can enter whatever information I want, all from my referral. I can click save, and then I can go out of my notes. If I want to add some information about the treatment, the reason for referral, say the child was referred because their ball skills are poor and their balance is poor, and maybe their handwriting is poor, I can enter those therapy areas, and then I can easily refer to them when I start my assessment. At any point, I can click on the save button, and my assessment notes will be saved in draft format until I'm ready to actually start my assessment. Okay, now I'm ready for the interview. So instead of writing interview notes on your computer or on a piece of paper, you can now enter all of your notes from the beginning of your referral and your interview onto the patient profile. So I'm going to click on the text button and I'm going to write my interview notes, and I'm going to enter all my information about my interview. I can easily highlight my notes if I want, and I can bullet them, underline them, or add any information that I'd like to. And at any point, I can decide whether this note should be shared with the clients or if it should be a therapy-only note. This means that only the therapists connected to the patient profile will see these notes. I can then click Save. You can see that there is a difference between the therapy notes and the therapy notes and the shared notes. Okay. So now if I'm looking at my notes that I've written, I can see which ones are therapy notes because they're in orange and which ones are shared notes. Okay. So at any point I can go back into these notes and I can write more information, or I can go back into those specific notes and I can update them. I can also change my status. If I change my mind and I want to make them shared, I can click on the shared button and click update. So at any point, you can go back into those notes. I am now in my actual assessment and I want to enter information about my assessment. So I want to take a photo of the pencil grip and I'm going to put in information about the pencil grip. You can write whatever description you would like to about a photo or a video. Once again, you can decide whether it should be a therapy only or shared note. Okay. I can also upload a photo or a video at any point. So if I have a specific video that I would like to add from my assessment, if I'm maybe doing a speech assessment and I want to add a specific video about the the assessment and about the speech, I can take a quick video or upload a video. If I am doing an OT assessment and want to take a quick video on hopping or star jumps, I can take a video and I can enter my notes about that video. Okay. So you can see how you can now look at all your videos and photos and notes about the assessment. Once you've finished your assessment and you have worked through all your assessment findings and you have scored your child in terms of their assessment findings, you can now come and update all the information from their assessment. You can see that we have created the opportunity for you as a therapist to add a range of ratings. So you can either add a poor rating, a below average rating, an average rating, above average rating, or Excel. So you can see that there are a variety of ratings that you can add. We've done this so that you as a therapist can also show the child's strengths as well as the areas that they're struggling with. Okay, so you will continue your rating. If you are maybe treating an older patient where social skills like eye contact and joint attention aren't important, you don't need to enter information about that. You can just leave out social skills and then only add the relevant areas to your assessment. Once again, you can decide as a therapist what's important to you. Would you like to show all the above average areas, or would you only like to show the areas of weakness? You can add as much and as little as you would like to as a therapist. Once you've added all your assessment findings and your ratings about your assessment, you can click on each specific therapy area to add additional detail if that's what you would require. So if you want to add additional notes about the proprioceptive system, you can click on text and then you can write additional notes about the deep pressure system. So whatever you want to write here, you can add as much as you would like. And these notes will be specifically tagged to proprioception. If you would like to add a specific photo that is related to proprioception, you can upload that photo and it gets added. You can add a title if you would like, and then save it. If you would like to add an assessment result, you're going to click on Add Assessment Score, and then you're going to find the specific assessment that you have used for this patient. So if the school form came out with definite difficulty, you can then enter your result for the school sensory processing measure. Then you can add the home form. So you can see that we have uploaded various assessments onto SpecialT. If there are additional assessments that you would like us to add, you can simply click on the button that says Request a Test. If you click on Request a Test, you can send us exactly which test you would like us to add to SpecialT. By sending us a request, we will be able to add a large library of assessments to SpecialT so that when other therapists are logging in and signing in, they can find all the assessments that they would like to use and enter for their specific patient. You can see I'm now adding a test to visual discrimination. I am now needing to put in the specific results from their TVPS test. I'm going to say that this patient got an 8 out of 20. And I know that that was poor, so I'm going to keep it at the poor rate. If I want to add another test, because I also did the TVPS4, I can then put in that result from that test. If I then go to my next therapy area, body image, I can add another result to body image, and that would be the good enough test. I can then select the different range. So you can see that we have entered all the different ranges of this assessment. So I can now select which mean age the child scored in. If I want to add additional notes about this specific test, I can then type in any notes that I want to add about this specific test. You can see that you can then go through all the different areas and you can upload all the information, whether it's a text, a photo, or a video, as well as a document. You can upload all of these right here under visual closure. Once again, you can go through all the different tests and you can add the child's score. If you've added a score and then you realize actually the child wasn't below average, they were above average, you can update that score at any point in your assessment. If you would like to add a document, you can easily do that by clicking on Document. And then what you do is you are going to scan by taking a photo of each page of the document. So you easily line up your phone and you can add all the different pages of the document. You can see I'm doing this in a rushed way, but the photos take really nice pictures and you can then page through the different pages of your document. You can also give your document a title. Once again, you can also change the status of your document. So do you want that to be therapy only or shared note? If you may be uploading sensory processing measures so that you don't keep the little pieces of paper lying around, You can take those photos and you can decide whether you want it to be shared or therapy only. Now that you've finished adding all your assessment ratings, your assessment tests, and the specific pictures and text that you would like to add about your assessment, you can now click on the button on the top right to confirm your assessment. You can add additional assessments. So if you have an additional assessment that you would like to add, you can easily then take the photos of that additional assessment. You can see that at the moment, because SpecialT is only on the phone, you have to take the photos of these documents rather than uploading a JPEG or a PDF. Once we move over to the desktop version, you will then be able to upload a JPEG and PDF document. So once you're ready with your specific report, or if you have another report from another professional, you can then upload that report to the assessment document. You can then click continue. You can upload the duration of the assessment, the time of the assessment, and the date of the assessment. If you would like to add additional notes for your next session, you can write yourself some notes here. If you are ready to click send, you can click save and send. If you're not yet ready, you can click save as draft. I'm going to click send. When you click send, the invite gets the email notification about your assessment gets sent to the patient either being the patient themselves or the client. Now that you've finished adding the assessment findings, you can easily switch between the full name or the abbreviation. You can see how easy it is by an easy glance to see which areas are below average, poor, average, and above average, just by an easy glance. I'm now going to set a goal. So we all know that patients are referred to us for therapy to come for a specific reason, and they all come with a specific goal. You can enter specific information about the description. And then that new goal gets added to the patient profile. Now what you're going to do is you are going to start by assigning therapy exercises to the patient profile. I can now see all the different therapy areas that I have selected for my patient, and I need to assign exercises for my patient. So, as you know, SpecialT has created many exercises, and these exercises are all tagged to the different therapy areas. Some of these exercises are then relevant for one patient and not relevant for another. So you need to jump between unassigned exercises and assigned exercises. To assign an exercise to the patient's profile, you are simply going to click on the exercise that is relevant, and you're going to add them to the patient profile by clicking on the exercise. So as I click on writing with chalk on the ground, it then gets added and assigned to handwriting for this specific patient. I can then choose the relevant exercises, and these exercises will be added to the patient profile. If I want to sit and add all of my exercises, this will involve some of your treatment planning, where you are planning what you are going to do with your patient. Okay. Once you've added exercises under handwriting, you can then go to the next therapy area, and add additional exercises to those therapy areas. You can see that this will take you a bit of time, but this is a very important process in making sure that you do your treatment planning and we remember that for you as a therapist. You don't have to remember that, we remember it for you. So you'll go through all the exercises that we have on SpecialT and you will add them to that specific patient. You will see that we have all the suggested exercises for homework, as well as the in-therapy exercises. SpecialT is passionate about making you save time as a therapist, so we are busy creating many in-therapy exercises. And these are the exercises that you do in therapy as a therapist. So instead of you having to write, I worked on the frog swing and we worked on prone extension and neck extension, all you need to do now is click on the exercise that is on that specific therapy area. For the sake of time, I'm just going to add another therapy area, and then we can get started with the assessment and, the session. You can see that we've got 109 exercises under proprioception. So some of these exercises may not be relevant to this specific patient, so I'm not going to add those exercises. I'm only going to add the exercises that are relevant for this patient. If, for example, at the beginning of my child's journey, I know that the child doesn't respond well to the frog swing or to circular input, I then just won't select those in therapy exercises to this patient profile. I'll then avoid things like the 1-point hanging, or I'll really only encourage the activities that I know this child responds well to. So this really is great, because when you go into the session, you'll have that reminder that this child mustn't do the frog swing or mustn't do the 1-point activities. So you'll go through all of these areas and you will assign the specific exercises for this patient. Okay, now you can see that you have assigned the specific therapy areas in your assessment. You have rated them. You've created your goals. You have assigned 39 exercises to the specific therapy areas. And before you start your first session, you have realized that actually you forgot to add another therapy area. So instead of having to go in and create a whole new assessment to add an additional therapy area to this patient profile, you can easily come to therapy areas and you can add an additional therapy area or more to update your assessment findings. And then those therapy areas then get added to this patient's profile, and they can now be seen in your assessment and in your sessions. I'm now going to click on New Session. And now I can see that I wrote myself a reminder saying assess ball skills and balance, because maybe last week I didn't have the opportunity to assess them. So now I'm going to click on my focus for therapy. So let's say I've got this really nice handwriting activity. I'm going to click on that. Or the mum has maybe messaged me in the day and said the child is really struggling. They had a really bad day and they're all over the place. And I know that vestibular really calms this child. So I'm going to then click on vestibular. Okay. Now I have the opportunity of starting my session. I can now see the areas that I want to focus on by clicking on focus areas, or I can click on all And then I can see all the child's therapy areas that are assigned to this child. You can see there are plenty other areas that were assigned to this child in the assessment, or I can look back at all the focus areas for this specific session. Now I want to add a photo of the child. So the child is maybe doing a writing activity, and I want to take a photo of the way the child is holding the pencil. And I can now write here the information about this specific image. Okay, I maybe want to take another photo, or I want to upload a video. I can easily then take a video. I'm now sharing my screen, so I won't be able to take a video, but you will be able to take a video at any point. You can then also update your upload a video. If you maybe have a specific video that you want to upload, you can then upload that, and that will then be uploaded. If you want to write some notes about the actual session, you can then come in and write specific information about the session. Once again, you can decide, is this a therapy only or shared note, and you can write your notes. You can see that what we have now allowed you to do is to upload your in-therapy exercises. So instead of having to write, you were doing activities on the trampoline or the trapeze swing and explaining why you did jumping and crashing, all you need to do now is click on the exercises that you did in therapy. So no longer do you need to add why you did those exercises. You can just click on them. Okay, so now maybe I did the frog swing, and we did those two activities in the session. I can then just click that I worked on prone extension in that session. If maybe we don't have the exercises that you have in therapy, you can then just click on the done button to say that you've done it, and then you can upload a photo or you can write a note about it. But you can see that at any point, you can click on a therapy area and you can add additional assigned exercises to this therapy area. So maybe initially I didn't add exercises to this specific therapy area, but now in my session or after my session, I can easily go and click that I worked on body image and cream, and I worked on a fuzzy foam portrait. Okay, so now I can just tick on those areas that I possibly did work on in my session. I can at any point click confirm and send, or I can click save as a draft. You can then see that my session is now being saved as a draft session from the 15th of March. I can click on the draft session and I can update it by adding additional therapy exercises that I worked on. I can add additional photos and notes to my session, and I can then obviously update as much as I want about the session that I did with this patient. Okay. We'll just wait for it to finish loading, and then we'll show you the parent view as well. Okay, I can then update. Let's say maybe I did handwriting, and we did actually do writing with chalk on the floor, and maybe I did work on ball skills, and I did that ball skills assessment. I can then go to ball skills, and let's say actually the assessment findings weren't very poor, they were actually below average. I can click on below average and I can update my rating at any point. So whether you are in your assessment, after your assessment, in your session, at any point you can update your specific results. If you would like to then take a video of the child doing their specific ball assessment, you can then take the video, you can upload a video, you can write specific notes about ball skills, and those will then be tagged to ball skills. And And then once you've finished uploading all the information about your session, you can click confirm. You can update the duration of the session. You can update the time of the session. And if you want to maybe add other therapy areas that you did work on, you can easily just click on those. And then you add your suggested exercises. Now, suggested exercises are the exercises that you want the client and patient to do at home. So you're going to now click on those different therapy areas, and you are going to suggest which exercises you want them to do at home. Some of the clients might have all the equipment at home and others might not. So you can see that all our exercises really allow the opportunity for clients to use whatever they have at home, like toothpick construction. Really nice activities that they can engage with at home. And now you can write notes for your next session. So if you are like me and you don't have a good memory, you can write yourself some notes about your next session. So I'm going to write that I'm going to work on balance and walking on a line while catching a ball. I'm also going to assess their visual memory. Okay, I did forget to add a focus, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to click on all the areas that I want to focus on. So while your memory is good and while the information about the child is nice and fresh, you are going to select the focus that you want to work on next week. So if you know that you want to work on visual closure and shoulder stability, you're going to click on those areas now, so that when you open up the session next week, you have that quick, easy reminder about what you want to work on as a therapist. So you're going to see now when I click on new session, it's going to remind me that I must work on balance and walking on a line while catching a ball, and I must assess the visual memory, and it is reminding me on which areas I want to focus on. So really, it's giving me that reminder all the way back from last week because I could not remember it. And it's giving me that reminder. And now I can also then add memory and balance. And now I'm for a way to get started in my second session for Carl. And then I can click save, and I can save it as a draft. Or I can continue. I can take 1 or 2 photos, put my phone down, carry on with my session. At the end of the session, pick up my phone, take another photo, maybe jot down 1 or 2 points while I'm with the child, or I can save it and then wait to come back to the child's profile and then finish the notes from there. Okay. So now I'm just going to save as a draft. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the timeline. So if I look over at the timeline, I can now see all the notes that I've uploaded. I can see the exercises that I've uploaded for the patient profile. I can see my first session, my second session. I can see if I've updated a specific a therapy area. So because I updated balance and I updated it to poor, it's now pulling through that new result. It shows the date that I updated that. It shows all the different areas about that specific child that I have already input. It shows all the exercises that I tagged to that child's profile. I can easily look at the child and I can see the session and that I've done 1 assessment, 1 session, and 1 session is still in draft format. So you can see how you can jump between the overview and the timeline for this specific patient. I am quickly going to just add another patient's information so that you can see the parent view. Okay. I'm not going to add all the therapy areas. I just want you to see what the parents see.
Nikki, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, of course.
Can I start a session without adding an assessment?
Okay. So we have complied with the HPCSA guidelines and all the record keeping guidelines. And what those say is that you cannot actually treat a child until you've assessed them. So we have tried to comply with these as much as possible so that we help you stay compliant and stay very legal and ethical on your side. So you cannot start a session until you've done an assessment. But what you can do is you can start an assessment, and if you maybe haven't finished the assessment, you can finish it as you go. So you would have seen that you can, like now, I'm going to click send on my assessment. I haven't really added too many things to my assessment. I am just going to quickly edit the time. And then I'm going to click send. So now I've rushed with this assessment. I haven't really added all the therapy areas, but at any point I can easily go in and I can add more therapy areas. So we've added this additional feature because we do know that some of us therapists, I know I do as well, I don't necessarily do all my assessments in the first session. So I do want the ability to go back in and update some of my assessment results. But you can see how quick and easy it is for you to add that initial assessment. And then once you've added that initial assessment, it then gives you some information in terms of your therapy areas and your ratings so that you then can start your first session. So you can see here how therapy areas are so fundamental that we, what we base all of our therapy on. So if you haven't added those in that initial assessment, it then gives you a blank session. So then you can't actually add any specific information. So my answer basically is you first have to add the assessment. You can add additional things to it at any stage, but you do first have to add the assessment before you can start with your sessions. Do you have any other questions?
Can you just quickly explain to me again the difference between in-therapy exercises and suggested exercises?
Okay, great. Thank you. That's a great question. So, an in-therapy exercise is an exercise that is, and it's something new that we've added to SpecialT, but it's basically an in-therapy exercise, which means that it's an exercise that you are doing in therapy. So it's not one that you are suggesting for homework. It's one that you've actually done in your session. So you can see here that when I click on proprioception, it's pulling through all these exercises that I've assigned to this child. And then these are the exercises that I actually did in the session. So say I worked on proprioceptive snacks and I had a whole lot of snacks in my session, and I worked on trapeze swing and I did Play-Doh. I can now, instead of having to write these in therapy exercises that I've done, I can easily just tick these in therapy exercises. So you can see that we have lots and lots of exercises, and we would really like to encourage all therapists, if there are specific exercises that you do as a therapist, to please send them to us so that we can add them to the library. And the more that people send to us, the bigger our library will get, so that it will be really quick and easy for you as a therapist to tick on that in therapy exercise that you've worked on. Now that you are ticking on the exercise, you're not having to write lengthy explanations on what you did and why you did it. All you need to go do now in your notes is write your feedback and then input the response from the exercise and the session. You don't actually have to now explain yourself about what you've done and why you've done it. You just have to add the response. So that's an in therapy exercise. And then a suggested exercise is once you're ready to confirm your session and you put in your session time and you confirm other therapy areas that you've worked on, you can now suggest an exercise. Now, remember that if you haven't assigned an exercise to the patient's therapy areas, you won't get them in your suggested exercises. So you can see that now when I want to click on balance or supinflexion, I can't, because I haven't actually yet suggested any exercises under supinflexion. I've only suggested exercises under proprioception. So now I'm going to tick on those 2 exercises for homework. But now if I realize actually I want to suggest something for balance for homework, I'm going to go back and I can click on balance and I can click on unassigned, and then I can easily assign exercises to balance. Okay, so I don't have to go all the way out my session. All I need to do is go back to my in therapy space, and I then assign some exercises that are relevant for this patient. And then when I go back to confirm my session, you can now see that I've got balance as some in therapy exercises, and I'm going to suggest direction jumping and bridge passes with a friend. So you can see that you need to have assigned an exercise to the therapy area for this patient in order to see it under in therapy exercises and suggested. Okay, so the parents will see the exercises that you have done in therapy if you've ticked on them, and they will see the suggested exercises that you want them to do for homework. Now, once again, you can write yourself a little note. You can add the therapy areas that you want to work on next week, and you can click send. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the parent view. So you can see now I am looking at my child. My child's name is Samantha, and I'm going to click on Samantha's assessment, and I can see all the therapy areas that Samantha needs to work on. You can see that I'm only seeing the relevant therapy areas for this child, because we don't want to bombard and overwhelm the client and the patient with all the jargon and all the information. We only want to show them what's relevant for this patient. You can see that they see all the colors, so they can also see what's positive, what needs attention. And we've also tried to use the wording like needs attention rather than our wording that says poor. So you can see here that they can see all the different therapy areas. If there was a test result under form constancy, they would then see the test result here. If there was a specific picture about proprioception, they would then see it there when they click on proprioception. They can also see the image. You can see for this specific patient, I only uploaded 1 photo. I didn't add any notes or any videos, but I can then send a session, send feedback and say, I worked on these areas. Thank you for the assessment. And now you can see that I can send feedback to the therapist. So the client can send feedback really easily within an assessment or in a session. You can see that the therapy covered these areas in today's therapy. You can see that the client can read the response, and you can see that the client only sees the suggested exercises that I suggested. Remember, I'd added 2 under proprioception, and then I added 2 more for prone extension. If I want to go and have a look at what the therapist worked on, I can then see if there are any additional notes, and I can see, wow, the therapist worked on all of these therapy areas, all of these exercises under proprioception. The therapist maybe worked on, let's see what else the therapist worked on. I think they only did proprioception. So I can now see all the notes there. I can see the feedback. I can see the exercises. I can click on the exercise as the parent, and I can watch the exercise. And then I can easily watch it and do it with my child. And I can send feedback. We loved the press stick game. And I can send that feedback. So you can see that the interface for the client is really nice and easy. They can jump between patients if they have more than one patient. One child, or it's their own child. They can easily look at the therapy areas and the assigned exercises for homework. And then when I look back as a therapist, I can easily look at the overview. I can see that I've done one assessment and one session, and I can look at the timeline and I can see all the exercises that were worked on as the therapist. I can see that there was one session done, and I can view the comments and the feedback from the client as well. So now I can look through all the information that was done in the session. If I want to add an additional photo about this specific session, I can easily upload additional photos, videos, or text. I just can't take away information that was originally put in, but I can add additional info about the session. Okay. And then I click save and confirm. And now that information is all saved, and the additional information that I've put in for the patient, and that additional, you can see how it says the first session was updated. So that additional session was updated. And I can obviously just jump between all my different clients, all my different patients, and I can see all the information between the overview and the timeline. And I can look at if there are any alert messages. I can look through all my resources. So if maybe I'm unfamiliar with some of the resources that SpecialT have, I can easily come to the resources and I can click on them. I can then view all the resources that are on here. So if we go to Prone Extension, I can see all the resources available, and then at least I become familiar with them, so I can click on them and watch them at any point. I can see which therapy areas that this specific activity is working on, and I can then assign, be more familiar, so that when I'm in each patient's profile, I can assign the relevant exercises to those patient profiles. You can see that we've recently added lots of feeding exercises to help the parents and the guardians with feeding and eating. We've uploaded lots of therapy exercises. We're busy uploading lots of speech exercise, sleep information. So we really try and create a platform where you as a therapist doesn't need to look for extra content and extra home programs. We really have a huge library of home programs and information for you to add that you've done in therapy, and then for you to suggest for home activities, so that at least there's carryover, and you are giving the client all the tools and the knowledge and the information about what their child is struggling with, or about what you've done in the session, and you're empowering them with knowledge so that they've got some more information and skills and ideas of what they can do at home. So that is pretty much how you work SpecialT, and how you navigate through creating a profile, a profession, adding new patients to the profile, and then also engaging and connecting with the clients. I don't know if you have any other questions that I maybe haven't covered.
I just have 2 quick questions next. How do I update SpecialT? I believe I need to do that from time to time.
Okay, yes. So SpecialT is always working on adding new features. There are a long list of new features that we will be adding to SpecialT. So we often do updates. We often do an over-the-air update. It's called an OTA, and that you don't even need to worry about, because as you log on, it will tell you that it's doing an automatic update. It might ask you to click the update button, but it's all automatic and you don't have to worry about anything. It does it for you. And then from time to time, we might do a big update where you need to go to the Google or Play Store and click update on the actual Play Store, and on SpecialT for Therapists there. So we might let you know that you need to do that from time to time, but most of the time we do over-the-air updates where you'll get a button that says update now. If you can, always just double check what version you're on. So when you click on the more button, you can see at the top it says app version 2018. So that means that you're on version 2, and if we might ask you from time to time to make sure that you are on the correct version, which has been updated. But most of the time that will all be automated. From time to time, you might need to go to the App Store.
Awesome, thank you. And then what happens if I forget my password?
Okay, so if you forget your password, it's not too difficult. What you're going to do is you're going to sign out. Well, obviously you won't be in, but you're going to click on sign in, and then you're going to add your email. Before you click on add your email address, you're going to click on the button that says forgot your password. Click here, and then you're going to enter your email address over here. So I must just make sure I enter the email address that I've just used. Okay. And then you're going to send send a request. And then when the request will then go to your email. I won't do that now. Your request will go to the email with a PIN. You can then enter the PIN over here, and you can enter the new password back on that little space. Okay. I do remember my password, so I'm just going to go in. But it is quick and easy. Do you have any other questions?
No, I think you have answered them all.
Perfect. Well, I hope that that was really helpful. The one thing that I did want to just share, that is, if you are switching between profiles, so if you are a therapist that works in 2 different practices, or you work in 2 different professions, just to know that you click on the more button, and then you can see here where it says switch profiles. You'll then have 2 different options there. You can see I've only got one, but you can easily jump between the 2 different profiles at that stage. If you are a therapist that maybe is in one practice but wants to create a new practice because you work in 2 different spaces, or if you want to search for one, you can easily click on the plus button where it says practice and teams. You can find a practice, or you can create a new practice. So that you can see that we've really tried to in-house a lot of the functionality for you as a therapist, so that you don't have to ask us to create a new practice or update your profile, because you can do all of that on SpecialT. When you do go over the limit for your specific subscription, you will get a pop-up, an automatic pop-up that says upgrade, and then you can upgrade your account to the higher package and the higher level. So everything is here on SpecialT. Thank you so much for joining our training. We hope that this was really helpful. If you have any other questions or would like to book a private session, our team would so love to help you and get you up and running. And so thank you so much for joining the training, and we will keep in touch.
Thanks, Nikki.